they tried to dog out. They tried to dog out Snoop Dogg for smoking a joint at the stadium, and it's like, whoa, water's wet.
Exactly.
Get the fuck out! No way. He was
No way. Snoop Dogg was high.
Hello, everybody. It is February 16th, 2022. We are 3 days removed from what ended up being a really awesome Super Bowl 56. It was awesome because Joe Burrow lost. And my number one nightmare as a Ravens fan did not come true. And I think that that's a win for everybody. I'm joined by Chad Cummings, my co-host on Squawk. How you doing, sir?
How's it going, guys? Doing good.
And we're joined again by Taylor. He's making his second special appearance on Squawk. What's going on, Taylor?
What up? Thanks for having me on again.
Let's break it down, man. Super Bowl 56. So the Rams ended up exploiting the thing that we said that they were going to exploit late in the game. I mean, it all came down to the Bengals' number one weakness, which has been their weakness all year, and that's poor offensive line play. What did you guys think of the game? What did you think about the atmosphere and how everybody sort of played out there on the field?
It was a good game. It was entertainment up until the last minute. As a Ravens fan, I was happy to see Cincinnati lose. There wasn't much of a run game for either team, especially the Rams. So a lot of passing, a lot of short passes, getting the ball out quick, especially after Odell went down. They were trying all kinds of stuff to get the ball moving because their run offense wasn't doing much. They've totaled 43 yards rushing all game. The 7 sacks that they got against Joe Burrow and Cincinnati really made a difference. Overall, it was a fun game. The halftime show was fun. Awesome halftime show. And it was cool. We had some people wanted to come visit the baby, so they came over, brought some food and made some whiskey sours, making some cocktails and stuff. It was a good time.
And rooting against the Bengals, I'm sure.
I think not all of us. Some of the people were like, they're Joe Burrow fans. They were cool with it, but not me, man.
They're about to get their Maryland cards taken away.
That's
Taylor,
what I'm saying.
What did you think of the game?
I thought it was a good game. I think for sure the Rams kind of got a little shell-shocked when Odell went down. You're in a big game. He's finally, the last 4 or 5 games, I feel like he was finally clicking, filling in for Bobby Trees after they lost him. And he goes down, and they haven't announced what the injury was yet, have they?
They torn ACL.
Oh, they did announce it?
Torn ACL.
Okay, so I mean, it was you could tell right away it was bad. And so I think they stumbled for the next quarter and a half of the game. I'll give props to their D-line coach or their defensive coordinator because they were finally coming out of halftime. Oh, you know what? Let's not let them double team Aaron Donald every single play. So they started doing some overloads and messing around with their linebackers to get them one-on-one. And the Bengals left guard I'm sorry, he's not good. He needs to be replaced. It was like a sack every time.
Yeah, I mean, that second half was it was an indictment on that offensive line. In the beginning of the game, they were holding Aaron Donald off. It seemed like wherever the center, if the center wasn't lined up one-on-one or there wasn't an overload somewhere, the center was going to go to whatever side Aaron Donald was on. And in the second half, they kind of mitigated that, right? They simulated pressure. The best example of this was the play where Aaron Donald gets credited for the sack, even though he pushed Joe Burrow out of bounds. It was this play, right? They hike the ball. It looks like there's 5 guys on the line, but Von Miller holds back and takes the tight end. And when that happens, you're rushing 4. Joe Burrow can't get the ball out quick because that's the crux of their offense, right? Is the offensive line is so terrible that you need to hike the ball and get it as quickly out to the receivers as possible. I think his release time in the Super Bowl was 2.56 seconds from the time it snapped to the time it was thrown. And in the first half, that was the way he was mitigating what the Rams were doing on defense. But when they pulled Von Miller back and covered the tight end, he had nowhere to go with the ball. And all this pressure, I mean, the guard play, Taylor, awful. I mean, once Aaron Donald got that bull rush going, it was there was nothing that they could do about it. So really great. Leslie Frazier is the defensive coach. So that kind of makes sense. He's got NFL pedigree. He was the head coach for the Vikings, I think.
Yeah, he's been around for a while.
Yeah, he's been around for a while. So, and now he's got a ring as a defensive coordinator. So good for him. Like, that was really the impetus of this game. We knew it was weak when Cincinnati was coming in. It's been a flaw of theirs all season, and it reared its ugly head. Odell Beckham Jr., if he stays healthy in this game, Taylor, I think he would have just absolutely dominated that defense. I think the score would have gotten a lot more out of hand. Do you agree?
Yeah, so I don't think the game would have been nearly as close. I would confidently say they probably put them another 10 points. And then the Bengals don't come out with that strong third quarter probably. And then that could be the game right there.
Yeah. Without those, the Bengals offense really, their scoring really comes down to those two big plays. The first amazing catch by Chase, that one-handed grab, getting them down there. And then one of the first plays of the third quarter after the halftime, when Higgins gets that long touchdown and gets away with that face mask against Ramsey. If it wasn't for that Ramsey play not getting flagged from Higgins' touchdown and Odell, going down late in the second quarter, this game wouldn't have been close in my opinion as well.
Yeah, that was egregious when they missed the face mask. I was just like, I can't believe. And then you had Skip Bayless on Undisputed being like, oh, I didn't see a tug. I don't see the tug there. And I'm like, I don't know, man, when your head jerks violently to the left, and that's also the inertia from where your body's carrying you. Yeah. I assume you got jerked in that direction. It was that play, by the way, was like one of two plays that the Bengals ran out of play action. Normally they average like 7 play action passes, but because of the pressure that the line was generating, they couldn't do play action. Because by the time they actually get all set up, Aaron Donald would be sacking Joe Burrow, and it would have been over, Yeah. And it could have been really devastating, right? Because the next drive after that, Matt Stafford threw an interception. Not really his fault. That Skoranek guy didn't run through his route. Mm-hmm. It ricocheted off his hand and into the defender. And it's like, that's going to be one. That interception is not on Matt Stafford. You got to run through that if you're a receiver, right? I feel like he stopped moving.
Also, don't palm it and just present it right to the DB.
Right.
Yeah. I get that. That gets on my nerve with receivers when they try and make these crazy catches and they just like silver platter right to the defensive back.
I'll be surprised if he's on the team next year, because he had a horrible drop in the previous game against San Francisco too. I don't know if you guys remember.
I do.
It was a perfect ball right in the end zone. He was running up the seam, and he just completely dropped it.
Yeah, that was a chance for him to really shine, because OBJ goes out. Yep. It's like, hey man, there's no better time to earn a roster spot than in the Super Bowl when your fucking name is called. He was on he had 2 catches for 52 yards and a touchdown. If this was on grass, do you think it would have happened?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of things on Twitter about players, dogging turf fields. I don't know. As an athlete myself, playing on turf fields in lacrosse, I didn't really notice a difference, but hell, that was 8-10 years ago. So yeah, I don't know if the players are saying that turf fields really cause more injuries, then I got to take their word for it. It looked like, obviously it was a non-contact injury, and it was like the heel strike. So he landed on his heel. It's not natural for someone to really land on their heel, especially when they're moving fast. So I feel like that's part of the reason why he tore his ACLs, when he was catching the ball, turning, landing on his heel right there. But does that, I guess the argument is the real ground gives more give, maybe? I'm not too sure.
I have a lot of issues with turf fields. I don't like the rubber that they put in there. I think it's fall on it.
That's the worst. Yeah,
it fucks you up.
Gets in your eyes, gets in your cleats.
There's not a whole lot of give on turf fields. I guess that's the argument. Yeah, it's just, I played it when I was playing soccer, and I was just like, dude, this is fucking ridiculous. And it's hot in the summer.
Oh, dude, that's the worst.
It's ridiculous. Taylor, what do you think?
I'm not a big fan of turf. I know, I guess around here, whenever the high schools all got turf field, it was a big deal, but I can't stand turf fields. But as far as injuries, it just comes to how the field's kept. You can just as easily get hurt on a not great grass field as you can a turf field. That's why the grounds crew pay so much attention during all like the different changes in weather and whatnot. So I'm not going to say, oh, he tore his ACL because of the turf, but if I had my preference, I would prefer grass. I think it's a little more, I guess, forgiving.
You look at the Ravens, their biggest injury day was the preseason training camp where they lost Gus Edwards and Marcus Peters in the same day with ACL tears, and all their practice fields are grass. So I just saw a couple players mention it on Twitter that need to get rid of the turf.
Yeah, another thing that plays a role too. That's the second time he's torn that ACL. This would be time number 2. So it already
it's the same one he tore last year with Cleveland. Wow.
Exactly. Yeah. So that probably didn't help the situation either. But what an indictment against Baker Mayfield. I mean, like really, OBJ, we're going to talk about Cooper Kupp in a second, but like it was a noticeable change in how that offense functioned without him. The touchdown was gorgeous too, when he starts off in the slot and he just goes out and around and he just makes this incredible catch. It was a noticeable difference. I'm glad he got his ring. I'm glad that the outcome was a win, because I think if he loses that game, if the Rams lose, OBJ is like devastated. Who knows if they re-sign him? I mean, I don't know. They've got a lot of cap issues over there in LA, which we'll talk about here in a bit. The Rams run game was terrible in this game. And this is where Robert Woods, I think his injury really affects the Rams. He is a great blocking wide receiver. We talked about it actually 2 pods ago, Taylor. You were on with us, and I really feel like if he's in the lineup, maybe the Rams get a little bit more going on the ground. And give the Bengals credit, like Joe Mixon had not been playing well up until this point, and he ends up getting like 72 yards. He had a pretty good Super Bowl.
Almost 5
a touchdown pass. So good for him, making some bettors happy, I'm sure. But like Cam Akers, it's crazy because 13 carries for 21 yards, but then you look at his receiving numbers, 3 catches for 14 yards. So you go from 1.6 yards per carry to 4.7 yards per reception. And then Darrell Henderson, who was coming off of injury, 4 carries for 7 yards. He averages 1.8 yards per carry. But when he's making catches, 3 catches, 43 yards. He averaged 14.3 yards, including the one where he goes down the sideline on the left-hand side. And Matt Stafford hit him for a pretty nice pass, actually. One of the many.
After he missed one earlier in the game.
Right. He did. Yeah. And he went back to him. And I thought that was great because Darrell Henderson just got activated. People weren't sure if he was going to go or not. And he ended up making some pretty good plays in this game. But the Bengals just did a good job, right? Bottling up the run. It was never a strength of theirs to begin with.
Yeah, I think DJ Reader, the Bengals nose tackle, had they won, you'd be hearing about him more. He had one of the Bengals 2 sacks, and a lot of the times, I think in run downs, they're lining him up in like a zero technique over the center. And the Rams center, I think he's a little undersized, and he was getting no push off. So the Rams running backs, they were kind of needing to bounce outside no matter what, even if it wasn't an outside run.
Let's talk about Cooper Kupp, Super Bowl MVP Cooper Kupp. This is it's easily one of the top 5 best wide receiver campaigns of all time, right?
I think it might be number 1.
Yeah.
The
only difference is, he didn't get he didn't beat Calvin on the yardage total.
No.
Right? Yeah, that's the only thing. He got the Super Bowl win, he got the Super Bowl MVP, he got the Triple Crown. Easily top. I mean, yeah.
So they were saying for a receiver to win the Triple Crown, Offensive Player of the Year, Super Bowl MVP, the only other receiver to do that was Jerry Rice, but he collected all those in separate seasons. Cooper Kupp did it all in one.
Yeah.
And let me say something real quick about Jerry Rice, because this gets lost in translation. The 49ers really benefited from the fact that they had Bill Walsh in a brand new style of offense that NFL teams had never seen before that. I really believe that was a big indicator of why the 49ers back in the 80s when they had Montana, I think that's a big reason why they dominated a lot of teams. I just think it took forever for defenses to catch up. Now it's a mainstay in football. You have some basis in the West Coast offense, but considering Jerry Rice was taking advantage of defenses who had absolutely no idea how to cover everyone else on the rest of the field, what Cooper Kupp did was even more impressive and he did it with Matt Stafford as his quarterback. Imagine that. Am I off base with that? Bill Walsh and the West Coast offense is probably one of the largest adaptations of football philosophy ever. And it showed in those championship teams. I really believe that.
I also think it was kind of like a perfect mix because you had Bill Walsh, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice. They had good running backs. Even when they moved on from Joe Montana, they moved on then to Steve Young. So how convenient is that?
True. Yeah.
I think it was Joe Montana. I'm pretty sure one of my favorite quotes from him. He was like, "Good NFL quarterbacks throw darts at balloons. Great ones throw balloons at darts." I was like, you got to be pretty good to say something like that.
I've never thought about that before. That's wild. But Cooper Kupp, amazing. He was amazing in this game too. I think he played 2 touchdowns, including the one where they had the drive that lasted forever. It went into the 2-minute warning, and finally Eli Apple, it came back to bite him. He was lined up with him, and Cooper Kupp took him for a fucking ride, it seems like. And he's getting him on the shins on Twitter.
When it seemed like the Rams had no answer on offense the whole third and fourth quarter, that last drive, they got the ball to Cooper Kupp, I think 5 or 6 times. One of them was a rush on 4th down to get the first down. I think he caught the ball 6 times, I believe. He was targeted maybe 7 or 8 times. And getting that touchdown at the end after a very controversial holding call on 3rd and goal, in my opinion. I think that was a bad call.
It was
the one on Logan Wilson.
Yeah,
that was a bad call.
That was a bad call.
I didn't think it was awful, but I also think it was kind of a makeup for the Higgins face mask. Because you always see that and even though the refs after the game said that the T. Higgins face mask, it wasn't enough to get the call, which I disagree. But whenever you see a game-changing call that's probably missed, soon after or later on in the game, you're going to get a 50-50 call, and you're like, makeup call.
You hate to see missed calls. Refs are only human, but you hate to see missed calls like that, especially in a game like this. And
go ahead, Jack.
And I'm just saying at that point of the game, when it's they have to score a touchdown to get in the lead, and then to call, if it was a makeup call, to call it in that circumstance, it just I at that point I had forgot about the Higgins thing. So in my mind I was like, damn, that was a horrible call, and that's going to give them a touchdown and they're going to take the lead. I knew that immediately.
The tight end that played, that was their 3rd string tight end.
Yeah,
he had
88
6 catches for 60 bucks in the last drive. He was pretty instrumental too, along with Cooper Kupp in getting them down there. Cooper Kupp is Cooper Kupp, right? He was just the best receiver in football all year, and it seemed like Sean McVay gave Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp permission to just go out there and sling it. The no-look pass from Matt Stafford to Cooper Kupp, that might be one of the best passes I've ever seen, ever. The no-look where he's trying to get, I believe it's Von Bell is back there, and he's trying to get him to
look
move.
him off. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's looking at the 3rd string tight end, which actually he probably could have, looking back on that probably could have been a good completion there. But Matt Stafford wanted to push the ball down the field, and he threw a no-looker that was just beautiful, beautiful. It was unbelievable.
In that big of a stage, yeah. That's definitely a top. If it's not number 1, it's number 2. That's 13 years of NFL football. To have the skill to not look where where the ball is going to go because you want a defender to look another way, and to put it perfectly, and Cooper Kupp hit him in stride like that. That's a hell of a play.
Since we're on the subject of Matt Stafford, it was the main story that dominated the offseason headlines, right? They meet up in Cabo and they concoct this plan to get, and then pieces kind of fell in as the season progressed. OBJ obviously was an amazing addition, but shout out to Matt Stafford, man. I'm a big multiverse guy. I thought we were living in the universe where Matt Stafford would never win a Super Bowl. And I think that would have been a real shame, because him coming out of Georgia, I've waxed poetic about him before. he gets a Super Bowl in this universe. He just does it with a different team. Happy for Matt Stafford that he got it. He's not a Hall of Famer, I don't think. We can have that conversation. No way, right? No.
I mean, not
close.
Not close. I mean, he still has a couple years in him.
I've always been a Stafford fan. Did I think he was going to go to the Rams and win the Super Bowl year one? No, but he put up with the Lions, and I mean, we've seen them crush great careers. So I was happy for him to get a ring, get a shot with a good team. He doesn't have a lot of hardware. He has numbers, but it's a pass-happy league. Edelman was like, well, his first year that you put him on actually a good roster with good coaching, he goes and wins the Super Bowl. So
yeah,
can you play that card too? Like maybe the Lions really are that bad that no matter what Stafford did, they were never going to win. And he did as best he could with what he had. Also, people are always like, well, he never won a playoff game. I think his game against the Cowboys, what was it, in 2014 or whatever, was stolen from him, because at the end of the game, he gets that like third down to Brandon Pettigrew, incomplete, where the refs call pass interference. And then like 5 minutes later, does the ref pick it up the whole time Des Bryant's running around the field without his helmet. So that should have been a penalty right there. So they should have got the first down and the game would have been over. Instead, Tony Romo gets like a game-winning drive to move on and knock out Stafford. So I don't know. Is he a Hall of Famer? Maybe not, but I think he's for sure one of those guys where you he's like the ruler. Maybe he gets in and like later on, maybe he wins another Super Bowl. Maybe he repeats next year, pulls an Elway, wins a couple Super Bowls at the end of his career.
Yeah, it's the biggest. He's one of the biggest what ifs the NFL has ever had, right? Like, what if he wasn't with the Lions? I think that's a big indictment for him not getting in the Hall. It would make the Detroit Lions. I think if you tell the story about Matt Stafford and his career, you have to talk about how inept the Detroit Lions are as an organization. They kind of go hand in hand with one another, especially with the success that he had with LA. It's just, I don't know. He didn't play. He played good in this game, but he had some issues. The interception that he threw in the back of the end zone, where he's trying to direct the receiver and he threw it. And as soon as he threw it, I was like, oh God, I've never seen Matt Stafford direct traffic on a Rams team before, but I knew it wasn't going to end up very well. And sure enough, Jesse Bates makes an incredible play. He gets the interception, turns the ball over. But other than that, I mean, the throw to Cooper Kupp to the outside shoulder was amazing. Cooper Kupp obviously makes the catch. And Matt Stafford's a Super Bowl champion. And I feel like that's a universe that is a good one to be living in. Because again, in his press conference after the game, Aaron Donald's super emotional. Everyone's super emotional. And Matt Stafford just kind of went up and was sort of same Matt Stafford that he always is, gives the interview and then walks off. It's like, man, this guy, what a G. Let's talk about some big picture stuff with the Rams. The Chargers are fucked now in LA.
Yeah.
Sorry, Asher. Yo, you can't hear me. You got headphones on. They're fucked. How are they going to sell tickets now? Does anyone have any idea how that's going to happen?
Your roommate won a Super Bowl in your shared stadium. Yeah, it's not the Rams stadium. It's not the Charger stadium anymore. It's the stadium that the Rams won a Super Bowl in.
All the crap that the guy got for moving from St. Louis over to LA, it seems like it was all worth it, right? In the end of the day, he hosts a baller Super Bowl. The halftime show is amazing. The Chargers are fucked. I don't know. They had a hard time selling tickets before. It's kind of like you're living with your roommate, and that roommate like goes out to the bar every night and brings home like a beautiful lady every night. And you're just like,
yeah.
And you're just sitting there, maybe playing video games or whatever. And you're just like, how does this keep happening?
Yeah. And that roommate ends up with that girl in your bed. And And then you haven't, gotten lucky in a whole year or some shit like that.
This analogy went somewhere I didn't expect it to go.
That's the situation.
100%. It's terrible for the Chargers and Chargers fans out there. I think they've lost LA, right? How are they they need to win a Super Bowl.
They were struggling in San Diego. That's why they left. And yeah, I mean, even the Rams home games, pretty close to half and half with the opposing team, especially in that game against San Francisco at the playoffs. I think it probably was 50-50. They got the franchise quarterback situated. That's the biggest hurdle.
Things aren't great for the Super Bowl champions, though. They're way over the cap. They have a lot of free agents that they need to deal with. Aaron Donald, I guess he's coming back. We learned in the parade today that he's going to be back for another season, but he probably wants a pay raise. How are they going to pay him? OBJ is on the docket. Eric Weddle, who, by the way, tore his pectoral muscle, wins the Super Bowl championship, and goes back to playing golf again. If only it was that easy, right?
That's yep.
Good for
He
Eric Weddle.
he probably made a cool couple mil to play 4 playoff games, Super Bowl. He got the green dot. He was calling the plays on defense. That's a hell of a unretirement.
Is he a Hall of Famer now?
Eric Weddle?
No, his Super Bowl.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm pretty sure he's like a 6-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first-team All-Pro.
I mean, he's had
led the league in picks 1 year.
He has a lot of hardware.
You don't think they would use that against him, though? The fact that he came out of retirement, I would argue that he was really productive this postseason. I think there were a lot of games where he led the team in tackles. Like Eric Weddle was a force.
I think he was really good. When they brought him in, I was like kind of laughing about it, and then when I was watching their playoff run, I was like, they maybe did need him. Like, I'll take back what I said about him.
Yeah, it's crazy. Which was better, Nate Diaz coming back to fight Conor McGregor or Eric Weddle coming back and winning a Super Bowl? Probably Eric Weddle. It's harder, I think.
Yeah. Well, he's off for 2 years. I think he was already getting – it was not like he retired young. He was already old when he retired.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. But they got to figure out what they're going to do with him. He's obviously not going to come back. Yeah. But Sean McVay, there are rumors that he wants to leave so he can go into broadcasting. I don't know if you guys saw this story, but there are rumors floating around that he might be interested in doing that. And he gave a speech during the pregame that kind of hinted to him, he wasn't sure about where his future was going to be. And then Von Miller's a free agent as well, and he had an awesome game. He was a big X factor in this game too. So it's not all shiny down there in Los Angeles, is it? They got a lot of questions that need answering if they want to repeat.
Hey, they got the Super Bowl, buddy. They're good. They're good for another, 6 to 8 years. Look at the Ravens. Our last Super Bowl was 2012.
10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
They went all in. They got rid of. They don't have a first round pick for like 6 years or something like that. Crazy. And they got the Super Bowl out of it. I mean, most teams would kill for that situation. Hey, it might be rough for the next 3 or 4 years, but they got the Super Bowl.
I think their whole plan was, get the Super Bowl, and they did it. So if they could definitely run it back, but it's going to cost them, and their future is already kind of questionable looking because they don't have picks, don't have money.
Yeah.
They got a lot of older players, so maybe be happy you got your Super Bowl and start looking to how to set up for another run in 2-3 years. They got a lot of smart people on their staff, so maybe they'll try one more run at it next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not going to have a choice. And then they just lost their offensive coordinator. He's going to go be the head coach for the Minnesota Vikings. So that came out today. We see this with Super Bowl teams, though. I know the Ravens in 2012, this was a huge example where Flacco got paid an extension, which I imagine Matt Stafford will get an extension from the Rams. I think that's reasonable to assume. And other players had to get cut in the process. And I feel like the Rams are like ripe for the picking with that. I know for a fact the Ravens could use Robert Woods. If Robert Woods is healthy, I think that's a great addition for that team in the run game and the pass game. So maybe they get cannibalized and they picked over. It wouldn't really surprise me. You're right. They win the Super Bowl at the end of the day. And that's all that really matters. Like if they have hardware to justify what they did, I think it's all worth it in the end. Let's talk about the Bengals. They lost. I'm so excited. And that was something we predicted all along. It finally caught up to them in the Super Bowl of all places. It was wonderful watching them lose. I don't even care. I don't care how anybody feels about that. As we talked about before, it was the offensive line that's been a problem for them. They have to address that in the draft, right? Because Joe Burrow is too good to have a 6-year-long career. And I'm worried that that's what's going to happen to this guy. Is that like a real concern we should be worried about? I mean, listen, if it happens, it happens. The AFC North will be a little bit easier to get through, but I never want to wish injury on anybody. They have to prioritize the offensive line in the offseason, right?
He took that one hit in the Super Bowl where you were kind of like, he got up and limped off, and you're like, Is he all right? And I think you could say he lost a little zip the rest of the game. So
Yeah, he definitely wasn't 100% after that, I don't think, in the fourth quarter.
Zach Taylor came out today. First off, he's getting an extension through 2026. So good for Zach Taylor. He went out and got his bread, rode Joe Burrow a little bit.
I think,
there was less zip, and he confirmed that it was a sprain. So Joe Burrow sustained a sprain in the game, and that's why he didn't have the pickup on the ball, and why he was kind of a little skittish in the second half.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was eager to move around in the pocket a little bit more, and that's when the Rams got him too.
Yeah, we talked about it in the previous pod, us three together, referring to Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
His short, I mean, you can't deny that his career was cut short. He chose to cut it short because of the injuries he sustained, and he was one of the highest sacked quarterbacks during his career. They never really invested in the offensive line for him. But yeah, if Bengals want to keep Joe Burrow standing upright, they got to do something. They got away with it this year, getting Chase. They invested into weapons instead of bolstering up that offensive line, and they made it to the Super Bowl, and he was the most sacked QB to ever make it to the Super Bowl, which is a pretty wild stat. To get hurt in the Super Bowl after being the most sacked quarterback again 2 years in another year, so I mean they would be absolutely redonkulously stupid if they don't invest into that offensive line this offseason.
And there are some good free agents out there too. I'm kind of hoping that the Ravens at least take a look at Trent Brown for the New England Patriots. He had injuries last year, but man, when he played with Oakland, he didn't allow any sacks and 326 dropbacks when he played at right tackle for the Raiders. So maybe that's a guy that they look at to try and shuffle the line around at the very least. Tackle isn't really their problem. It's their guards. Their guard play is just really, really awful. They don't have an excuse. They have at least $60 million in cap space going into free agency.
Yeah.
They have to address it, or I don't foresee a very long career for Joe Burrow at this pace.
Yeah. If I'm the Bengals, I'm taking a look at who are the top free agent offensive linemen. Honestly, I don't care how much I got to pay him. I'm bringing at least one in. And then the draft, you're probably taking 2 offensive linemen with your first 2 picks. I know they're going to be 31, but there's this draft. It's pretty deep in the O-line, so they could come out okay, but they just got to commit to making those changes because, like we said with Andrew Luck, for whatever reason, the Colts were just like, man, we'll be all right, and they were, but he wasn't.
And it's not like Joe Burrow entered the league young either. He was 25 when he came in. This isn't we call him a second-year quarterback, but really, I mean, he's 26 years old? It's not like he's
old. He's older than Lamar. Yeah.
Way older. Yeah. So it's not like you have that long of a clock on Joe Burrow to begin with when compared to other quarterbacks who entered the league. That's all I'm saying on that. Yeah. I think Joe Burrow's he's an amazing quarterback. He's got the swagger. He's got the arm strength, I think. He really, I can't emphasize enough how much he got flummoxed by when the Rams started dropping linebackers back in coverage, which would create a mismatch, and you would still bring 4 guys to overload a side. We talked about that earlier in the pod. When they did some variation of that, 9 dropbacks, out of those 5 sacks and 1 first down allowed. And it was the play where Joe Burrow scrambled and he picked up a 4th and 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the very last possession of the game, the last sequence there where Aaron Donald gets the stop on Cam Akers, holds him back. Incredible. That might have been a more impressive play than getting to Joe Burrow on the last play. People say that Jamar Chase was open on that play and that he had beaten Jalen Ramsey at the end. There's no fucking way he would have gotten the ball out in time with the way his pocket was going.
I was about to mention that because I think Ramsey tripped, but Burrow would have needed to pull like an Eli and break out of the sack and sling it downfield. It would have been a great ending. It doesn't matter how open your receivers are if you can't plant your foot and throw the ball. When Aaron Donald has you in his grasp, like you're not throwing the ball. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, he had 2 wide open options if he had the time to throw the ball. Uzama, the tight end, 87. They did a little rub route on the left side of the field, or if you're looking at the screen on the top, and with Higgins and him, and he was wide open in the flat. Easily could have got the first down there too.
Yeah.
So it was a great play call, just no protection. Even saying that, I mean, Aaron Donald is a beast. Who's to say he couldn't have done that against a good offensive line? I mean, he's one of the best. He is the best defensive player of the last decade consistently.
I think Zach Taylor got a little bit outcoached in the second half because he came out running and they were moving the ball. And I was like, oh, maybe this is where the Bengals put the game away because they were up by 4 at that point. They kind of got away from the run, and the Rams started to go to that little overload look, and they were dropping linebackers, and they kept shading Aaron Donald right over the guard, and they're putting their other defense tackle right over the center. So you can't double team Aaron Donald at that point. Maybe Joe Burrow's sprain messed him up because ideally you would say, all right, roll out to the weak side and then get an easy completion. But maybe he, if your leg's busted and you can't move, that really limits your scheme. But
yeah,
I think Zach Taylor got a little bit outcoached in the second half.
Apparently there were reports coming out that Joe Burrow was playing with a lot more injuries during the season than was initially reported. Apparently he had a pinky issue that he was dealing with that was bothering him. I think this was probably Cincinnati's best shot at getting a Super Bowl, at least in the foreseeable future. Now losing that game, now you got to go through Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Ryan Tannehill, and a combination of other quarterbacks who are going to be in the postseason all over again. And it's like that with a lot of teams. And I think the Bengals can probably rebound a little bit better with all the cap space that they have. And really their only issue is their offensive line play. The defensive line, I thought, played pretty well, all things considered, in this game. They certainly were able to stop the run like we talked about earlier. You don't want to see a situation where a guy who so obviously has a bright future in the NFL is just going to get crushed on a weekly basis with defenses that are going to be different. He's not going to sweep the Ravens next year, people. It's not going to happen if you're worried about it. He's not going to sweep the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't think, either. I may look dumb in a few months saying that, but I don't foresee with a healthy Ravens squad, the AFC North is going to be much, much more competitive next year than it was this year. And I think this was a good shot for him to pick up some silverware and kind of laud it over all the other AFC quarterbacks. Let's talk about Joe Mixon real quick. They were running the ball really well. Joe Mixon, this was the best game that he had. They really took advantage of some of the guys that were hurt for the Rams. The pass where Joe Mixon throws the touchdown, the defender that was moving off the receiver on that play was Nick Scott, who was filling in. He's not a starting safety, and he kind of just went towards Joe Mixon thinking he was going to run, and he laid it up over top of him. I thought the Bengals did a good job with that coaching-wise because the Rams were banged up going into this game. Did Jalen Ramsey play badly in this game? Do you think that the stats would say 5 catches allowed, 160 yards, and a touchdown? But if you take away the touchdown that should have been called back and the 75 yards that accounts for that, I mean, it wasn't his best game, but I don't think it was as bad as people are making it out to be, right?
So I always have jokes for Jalen Ramsey because I've seen numerous times where he just waltzed out of the way and let Derrick Henry run right past him in his Jags days. I think he is a good cornerback. So I hear too much people say he's without a doubt the number 1 corner in the league. I don't think so. Top 5, I'll give him that. He hasn't been great in the playoffs. Last year against the Packers, Devontae Adams had a pretty good game against him, caught that little motion touchdown, which maybe wasn't Jalen Ramsey's fault, but it's his guy. In the Bucks game, that when the Bucks almost had that amazing comeback, he gave up that 50-yard touchdown to Evans where Evans just ran past him, didn't do anything fancy. And then in this game, he gave up, I think they said he gave up 170 receiving yards, and 75 of it was on a play where he got face masked. And sure, that's not entirely his fault, but at the same time, you're supposed to be a physical, big man coverage corner. And sure, you got face masked, but that's still the receiver kind of bodying you up a little bit. And then, like we just said, what if Burrow breaks out of that Aaron Donald's pressure at the end of the game and hits Jamar Chase down the sideline? Then he does lose the game for him.
I don't want to speculate on this, but is it because that in the playoffs, coaches kind of mix up schemes a little bit and put a little bit of nuance into their play calling and a little things that are a little bit different? I mean, like the Joe Mixon pass for the touchdown is a great example. Like that was, I think, Joe Mixon's first ever touchdown throw in the NFL. I mean, there are wrinkles in offenses that they add in the playoffs, right? To kind of confuse guys on defense.
That's fair.
Yeah.
It's one thing I've heard about Jalen Ramsey a lot is he gets bored, and that causes these little lapses in concentration. But you're in the Super Bowl, like that. No, that shouldn't, like, you should be on every single play. The Rams were bringing pressure, so it's supposed to make a DB's job easier.
Yeah, and those 3 plays were man coverage plays. Like he's playing one-on-one, one-on-one against Jamar on the big one-handed catch, one-on-one on Higgins with the face mask touchdown catch, and then one-on-one with Jamar again on that last play where he tripped up. So I don't think scheme really has anything to do with his lapse of play right there.
Yeah, it's fair. Eli Apple got torched and then got torched on Twitter.
Dude,
poor guy. I mean, golly, it seems like everybody's coming after him, right?
All the Ravens were coming after him.
Yeah, fans and players alike, man. Everybody was just like applesauce and all kinds of stuff, calling him out. He was very quiet, obviously, after the game. There was a shot where his team wasn't even picking up, like he was, how they reach up to get picked up off the ground.
Yeah.
His teammates are like ignoring him. So he might be in the doghouse with his own teammates for running his mouth too much. Who knows?
He brought it on himself, though. I mean, he's the first one to hop on Twitter after he does something good or gets a win. So, I mean, people keep those receipts, and they were waiting.
When guys talk shit and it never works out, I don't know. It's definitely funnier than when they talk shit and back it up. I take great enjoyment out of that story. I didn't even realize it was as big of a deal as it was until you guys said something. So, I mean, that's it for the Bengals. They now have to go into an offseason wondering what if. They're going to be dueling with the Ravens too, because the Ravens are looking to pick up offensive linemen as well. I think it's fair to say that's going to be a priority for us in the draft. For once, we'll have the higher draft pick. So we'll actually get first crack at a player, and it'll be one of those what ifs next season. Whether the Ravens or the Bengals made the better moves on their offensive line. Let's talk about some other factors. The refs in this game. What do we give them? Scale out of 1 to 10. 1 being you should never, ever officiate anything for the rest of your life, not just football. And 10 being you guys could not have possibly done the Super Bowl any better. What would you give them?
I'll give them a 7.5.
Taylor?
I'm going to go with a 5.
Oh,
okay.
Which I don't think is that bad because I already have low expectations for the refs.
Right.
Well, there was a T. Higgins face mask, and I'm not even really going to hold that against them. There was the Logan Wilson holding, and I'm not even going to hold that against them.
Phantom holding.
But there was also, I feel like a couple times, offensive linemen, especially tackles, were jumping early. I think there was like 3 or 4 times where like me and whoever I was watching with yelled out false start, and I don't think it was ever called.
Yeah.
There was a play where Aaron Donald was like clearly lined up over the ball.
That was the last play. I saw that later too.
The Bengals ran it, and when Donald stopped the guy short, he was close. I'm not saying he converted, but he was close. And they spotted the ball like 1.5 yards away, and I'm just like, it should be like it should be inches, not 1.5 yards. I'm not going, oh, the refs blew it, but I'm giving them a 5. They didn't do good. They didn't do awful. It's just what you get out of the refs these days.
Yeah.
It's funny because I totally did not plan this out to be this way. I was going to give them 6. So not only that, but then you also have to think they didn't throw the flags at all, really, for the first 3 quarters. And then the fourth quarter, it just seemed like flags in the last drive. Flags were coming out everywhere. It's like they forgot that they were officiating a game. If they had kept that philosophy through the entire game, I think maybe it's hard to say because some of these calls are really egregious that they missed, but I didn't see anything that was so egregious. So yeah, the refs, I give them probably a 6. And so that's about right. They did about average. I can't really complain. The halftime show. How do we feel about that? 1 to 10. I fucking loved it. 10.
10. I'd say 10.
We're not old. Wait a minute. I think that's a narrative that's being pushed that I don't think is totally accurate. Gen Z knows who Dr. Dre is. Eminem's still going. Kendrick Lamar is recent.
Yeah.
50 Cent looked fat, but that's kind of what I expected. Good for him for.
Yeah, I was gonna say good for him.
Yeah,
That was impressive.
50 Cent turned into $1.
Yeah, but hey, he hung upside down for quite some time. I'll give him a lot of credit. For that.
Well, did you actually see? He actually wasn't upside down that long.
He went down and stayed there while he was singing. I thought
that's
that
tough.
was
Your blood's rushing to your brain.
You got to rap. You're in front of 111 million people, I think, tuned into the Super Bowl to watch it, and I imagine more watched the halftime show. Like more of that number did. So. Yeah. I fucking loved it. The Eminem kneeling with the NFL approving that. I thought they did great. I loved it. That's one of the better halftime shows I've seen in quite some time, actually.
Yeah, I enjoy. I
watched the whole thing. So
yep.
I felt like it was a good length. It wasn't too long. Everyone had a quick little song, and
I myself want more. I was like, that's it.
It's not Katy Perry riding in on an electronic tiger or anything. That was probably the most ridiculous. That or Lady Gaga. Floating up.
Yeah,
that was kind of weird, but yeah, good halftime show. Good job.
Yeah, one of the better ones the last couple decades, in my opinion. I mean, the last one before Prince was awesome, whatever year that was.
Yeah, I think before this one, Prince was one of my favorite one.
Because it was raining when he was playing Purple Rain. That was fucking gangster. They did
Purple Rain.
That was a good one too. I don't know. It was up there. I thought that was great. They tried to dog out. They tried to dog out Snoop Dogg for smoking a joint at the stadium, and it's like, whoa, water's wet.
Exactly.
Get the fuck out! No way.
No way. Snoop Dogg was high.
Yeah, Jesus. And then the FBI. We haven't heard a statement from them, so I think they're just going to let that one slide.
Meanwhile, the NFL has Coors Light sponsorship and Bud Light sponsorships and shit.
Well, hey, they're looking into weed as an alternative for pain relief, and they're devoting some money into researching it and all this other stuff that's going on.
The NFL is
an article out, which is very interesting. It makes guys like Josh Gordon look a little bit. I wouldn't say it makes him look good, but it's interesting how his career would have been treated if he got into the league 10 years later, right? Depends on what they find. I don't know. They say they got their people working on it.
They don't get a competitive edge by being high or smoking when they get home from getting pounded for 3 hours. Like,
I don't know. Look at the Sha'Carri Richardson stuff. The Olympic Committee doesn't seem to think that.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
It's ridiculous. I don't know. I get with the times. Golfers are using CBD. You could at least get CBD.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
For the NFL, right? It's up to them ultimately if they want to do that or not. I think a lot of leagues look to the NFL to set the standards for their leagues as well. Although in this case, they're behind the ball, right? Because Adam Silver with the NBA, they stopped testing for weed, I think, recently. We'll see what comes out of that. I don't know. Until they reschedule it, you're not really going to have a good answer on pop one way or the other. But good. Marijuana talk on the podcast. That doesn't happen very often.
It's officially the new season. We're all undefeated right now.
And there are some futures that are up in the air as well. That I should mention. One that comes to immediately comes to mind is Carson Wentz, right? They released a statement, the Colts did anyway, that said that they are not thinking that Carson Wentz is going to be their quarterback next year. So add Carson Wentz to the list of QBs that might be on the market. A lot of interesting stuff. You're right. It's not the official end of the season quite yet. Right. That's March 18th. But it is a time where people are going to reassess and restock and get ready for the draft that's coming up.
Yeah,
that I'm very excited for.
People are already getting cut.
What's up with that Marquise Brown story that's going around?
No one has substantiated this.
It's bogus. There's no way he's quitting the NFL to play video games.
Well, and the guy on Twitter who's trying to push this story is like, oh, I broke it first. And it's like, well, maybe you should get it right instead of breaking it first. That's just
But it is interesting though that he did the same thing that Kyle Murray did. Kyle Murray took all his branding for the Arizona Cardinals off his social media and shit like that. And Marquise did the same thing. I don't know. I don't know what it
Maybe
means.
he's trying to get a contract extension rather than having to play through his 5th year.
Yeah, that's probably a contract thing. Who knows? Because they were both drafted in the same year, right?
Yeah, 3 years. They've both been in for 3 years.
People seem to say that Kyler Murray's like immature, and he's, he goes to his locker and he calls his girlfriend instead of hanging out with his team. I don't know what to make of that. Like, it's a new generation. I don't know. And if they're winning, that isn't an issue. But it's interesting scenario with the Arizona Cardinals. I don't know where he's going to go, if that he thinks he's going to like have a better sit-up than what he's got. But that's going on in the news. It's going to be a very interesting cycle, and it's going to be interesting to see how teams shake up their rosters. A lot of teams have to make decisions on guys getting cut before the March 18th deadline, like whether they're going to move some guys around or get them cut off the roster. So we have that stuff to look forward to. Yeah, this was great. I think this is a good place to wrap it up. Thank you to all of our subscribers with Flock Squawk. Taylor, thanks for taking time to come out and join our podcast again.
Thanks for having me.
So obviously we're bringing it back for sure. And we're going to have you on. We're going to do a draft podcast coming up. We're going to work out the details for that. And that should be a lot of fun. So keep a lookout for that. On Twitter, it's Flock_Squawk, #Flock_Squawk. And then for TikTok, it's @Flock Squawk Podcast. And you can check out some content that we have on there, and that will be updated fairly frequently. So Chad, it was great seeing you. Asher, you're an angel.
Thanks.
Out like a light. See, that's the kind of sleep that I'm missing in my life.
Yeah.
That's the sleep that evades me.
You need to get breast milk, baby. That's what it is.
That's the key.
It has
Add
it to your regimen. Yeah.
Yeah, I do my shopping online, so I'm sure I could find that somewhere. It's like a specialty item at Whole Foods, right? That I can pick up.
Probably.
Either that or have a baby, right? And then it happens naturally. Taylor, It was great seeing you, my friend. Like I said, get back to me on your podcast stuff, and we're going to see you in the future. This is always fun. It's always fun bringing you on. The second time we've done it, and I think it's going to be a smash again.
Yeah, happy to come aboard.
Again, thank you to all the listeners. We're going to be back next week because it's going to be the first podcast really of the off season where we're going to be breaking down Ravens needs, players that might be moved in the future. I'm sure we'll have news to cover at that point as well. So we'll keep you all informed next week on that. And have a great rest of your week. It sucks that football's over. This is the time of this year where I get kind of sad because I got nothing to look forward to on Sunday.
Same. The wife's happy. There's no more football, but
I was going to say the wives get us back. So if there's a winner out of all of this, it's the wives/girlfriend.
It's the girlfriend. It's the girls in our lives. Yep, for sure. Oh
gosh, what fresh horrors await me? Farmers markets, fairs, festivals, hikes. I don't know. Sundays are going to be a lot more eventful for me for sure. And it'll be more eventful for you guys as well, especially if they hear this podcast and take any ideas out of it. Yeah. Boys, it was great talking to you. We'll see you all next week for Flock Squawk. Until then, caw-caw. Everyone have a good rest.
Peace.
Take it easy.